In this video, I'm going to be painting a scene from the west of Ireland, Achill Island to be precise. It's going to be inspired by the power of Belfast's Paul Henry, a painter of the early 20th century. Over the course of the next 90 minutes or so, I'll let the painting unfold slowly, talking through my decisions as I search for shape, light and atmosphere. There's no rush, just paint, place and the changing mood of the west of Ireland. Enjoy. I'm going to start out by putting on the paint. So I'm going to use titanium white. I'll put out a good dollop of that. Cadmium yellow pale hue. Permanent rose. Cobalt blue. This is a simple palette that anyone can use and to get a huge gamut of colours. Okay, so I use it a lot. But the first thing I'm going to do is put on a wash. So I always put a wash on my paintings. I don't think I ever paint without a wash. So I'm going to start out with this wash. So it's about the consistency of milk. All you need to do is get a kind of a mid-tone on. And the mid-tone kind of corresponds with the mid-tone of your palette. Palettes are often this kind of mid-tone. They're either wood or they can be grey plastic. There's, you can do lots. I suppose as long as it's not a bright colour. So this kind of looks a little bit like the wood palette, which would be a very traditional way. Painting. There we go. That's all on there. By the way, the size I'm painting on, you can obviously see by the size of my hand in comparison that the size of the paper I'm working on is oil paper. It's gessoed oil paper. Is A4. So now we have a canvas with a wash on it. I'm going to make up a kind of a dark burnt sienna and blue, just to give myself a drawing. Okay, so if I come across here, I want plenty of room for the sky and the clouds. So if I come across here like that, that's nice and low for the horizon or the foreground parts. It rises slightly there. We can do that later. I want to put in that bit of land. Mountain comes up to about the centre of the composition. And then the mountains in the background. So from about here, rising up. And don't forget, look, when you're painting en plein air, you're out in nature, you've got to get this done quickly, especially if it's like the west of Ireland. You'll have all your equipment blown away by the wind, all that kind of thing. So push that down there. And then there's a bit of land rising up here. So we're just trying to get a composition in first. We can adjust the sizes of everything later. There's a little house here. These will be small. Another one here. I'm going to push that back over here a little bit there. There's a kind of a trio of houses really. And another one up here. And then that can go where it falls. This is all quite abstract there. And now more abstraction is in these clouds. Obviously they'll be moving at quite a fast pace, but we'll just put a kind of a rough guide to where they're going to be. We can see the bottom of the cloud rises above the mountain there. And we've got the clouds along there. Got a little bit of sky along here that's viewable to the horizon. And the clouds rise up. They're monumental clouds. And Paul Henry was notable for these kind of monumental clouds. Okay, that can come up there like that. Okay, the greyish or the dark parts of the clouds. The sun is obviously from the left-hand side of the picture, coming along there like that, down there, along there, lot of cloud, dark cloud in the middle, and the least amount of light is getting in under the clouds about here and coming along there like that. So now we've got a kind of a pretty good idea of how the composition is. Obviously, if you're outside on plein air painting in real life, you've got to set the parameters, and for the photo references, set the parameters here. So what I'm going to do now is a Notan. Okay, a Notan is a kind of a dark and light schematic of the painting. So I find it helps. So I'm going to fill that in. Just a bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of blue into it. Bring that down there like that, and not much thicker or more viscous than the initial wash. Along there like that. Put that there, and then we've got this here. That's also more or less a dark. That all might have to come down a little bit. That all comes down there like that, and that's quite a bit lower than I have it there. And everything is distant. Okay, and then we've got dark along here. Along here like that. There's a big dark along there. A dark above that house there, and then you can put in, I'll just use a bit of solvent and describe the least lit part of the clouds along there, like that, around there, like that. Just bear in mind that I'm peering round a camera as I do this. I think I've got most things in position now. Okay, so the thing about this, about Impressionist painting generally, but Paul Henry in particular, is he divided out. He divided out the subject matter. So all the foregrounds were strong colours, you know, quite deep and rich, and laid on. Where the whole thing is impasto compared to the way I usually paint. But he would divide it out, and then the mountains he would treat in a kind of a more pastel way, and in the sky and the clouds he would often make it quite light but heavily painted, and he would change the colours around so that they played off against each other. So you wouldn't necessarily do a blue sky. The skies could be kind of any colour as long as they're lighter than everything down here. So everything down here comes forward. I mean, that's the Impressionist part of it, I think. So, you know, that's what I'm going to do. So you're changing reality. How are you doing? Before we get back to the brushes, a quick reminder. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and drop a comment. I love hearing what you're working on. It keeps the community growing and helps others find these video lessons too. If you'd like some extra resources, check out the links just below. I've got ebooks that take you step by step through oil painting, merchandise like t-shirts and aprons, perfect for keeping the paint where it belongs, and prints of my own work. And you'll even find original oil paintings if you'd like a unique piece for your wall. Every bit of support makes it possible for me to share these tutorials for free, and I can't thank you enough. And you're enjoying yourself. That's the important thing, to have fun with it. And try and put in nice colours that vibrate against each other. So I'm going to make in the dark out of blue and burnt sienna. That's all. And I'm going to put in some of the darks. Okay, so to me that's very dark along there. And then we've got the dark across that ridge. We've got that little house there, and there's darks around there, and darks down towards the lowest part of the canvas, along there too. But when Henry was painting, all the houses were little white cottages with thatched roofs. Of course, you might just as easily find a modernist pile by some famous architect down here now. But damn them. If I was leader, I'd make everyone live in little white cottages with thatch on them. Just to prettify the environment. So don't vote for me. I'll have you all in penury. So the little house there, some details up there, little eminences out of the landscape there, and across there. So what I want to do is there's a lot of green in this landscape, but I want to make it more red. You often see that there's a lot of red in the Irish landscape, and I suppose in the British Isles really, because they're an awful lot of wind-swept, cold areas. It's not like Provence. Well, you all obviously know that, but Provence, the main idea was to actually describe heat in the landscape, but we don't get that, and that's why Paul Henry's paintings are important. I think he kind of shows us a way to deal with that. Right, so I'm going to start out with some red in the landscape. Just going to mix up some yellow and permanent rose. And put it in certain places around here. I'm not sort of painting up to lines or anything. I'm just seeing areas that I can treat with this colour and place them in around there. So we'll move forward tentatively. That's the idea. So I'm going to make sure I know where that little cottage is. So I'm going to actually put in a little bit of a light. And put that in there. The other one was there, wasn't it? And then another one about here. Just so I don't forget where they are. The mountains beyond, okay? Very often in a Paul Henry, they're blue. But I'm not just going to make it a pure blue and white mix. It's cobalt blue, by the way, yeah. I'm just going to mix in a colour as well. And I think I'll mix in a little bit of a red, so it's slightly violety. So I'm going to put those down there like that. And just mass that in. The sculpture of those hills can come later. We'll do that with the sky. The tone we mix for the sky. Okay, and they can come down there like that. So now we have some mountains. Right, so let's start out with some sky as well. So white. Yeah. White. I'm going to start out with a little bit of cobalt blue in the white. So it's mostly white with cobalt blue into it. And I'm going to paint in some of these areas here. Now, when you're painting, it will pick up a little bit of that wash, but don't worry about that. The whole idea of all of this is to get a beautiful painting, not to record an absolutely photorealistic copy of what's there, facsimile. So we'll bring some sky down there, top out those mountains, and then down here too, we can still see a lot of the sky. along there, like that. And then let's grab some of that darker blue that we use for the mountains to make a nice greyish tone. And then we could sort of put in some shadows of those clouds where the least amount of light is getting through. Around there, we've got some nice clouds there. All along here. The paint I'm using is almost neat, but it's going on quite thinly at the moment, okay, because I'm still feeling my way forward. So you can get some idea of these clouds. Okay. Right. Let's go back down to the foreground. It's the same as any alla prima painting. You're moving all around the painting, trying to bring it all forward at the same time. So there is a darkish purpley colour on that mountain there. I can push that down towards the ground. There and around there like that, which kind of comes across there like that. Now, behind, there's a bit of land which is in the same colour range, reddish, but it's far away, so there's a big body of air between us and the land. So I'm going to grab some white and some blue, like, in other words, sky colour, and mix it with that. Add in a bit more yellow. And then put that there. Okay, now I do need some green in the foreground. So yellow, so these are all the kind of grassy areas. Yellow and blue makes a green, but with this palette you need to put in some red into the yellow blue mix. Okay, in order to make it look natural. A bit more yellow. So we've got a natural green. And then we can start putting some of those areas in along there. Okay, down here a little bit. I'm still not being specific at all. There's a nice green area there. Anywhere else up behind there. There. And along there. Okay. So in fact that tone there goes up behind here as well. Up there. Now, the clouds, I'm not going to, you see the light areas of the cloud are, what anyone, with eyes to see are white, but I'm not going to do white. I don't want them to be just white. The clouds are full of colour, but I want these to be a slightly kind of yellowy, pinky colour. So in the main, okay. So white, and this is for effect. Like this is not because I'm trying to get reality closer to reality. It's trying to force my own reality onto it, my own ideas of what the thing should look like. So white plus yellow plus red. A bit more yellow actually, and more white. We'll start out with that. Let's put a little bit of solvent into it to lengthen out the paint. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. It's not far off what was there already, but that's fine. This is good for for a start. So putting all that in. And around here, underneath the lowest of the clouds in the foreground. The point about en plein air painting, like if you are going to go out on plein air painting, or even if you paint from a reference, the best way to think about starting the painting is to say to yourself, I'm going to paint it this way. And you do that before you ever start painting. You decide what way you're going to paint the painting, rather than being faced with reality and then trying to copy reality and it's a difficult thing to actually make facsimile of what's in front of you. So don't try. Make your own painting. Okay, so we've got clouds up there now. That can go there. I'm going to mix a little bit of blue with that. Here. Come up in there. So we've got some slightly shadowed clouds behind. Okay. Now there is a little road, and the road is really, it's really reflecting the sky, but I want to put it in because it's supposed to be there, and that goes along there. It's just a stroke really. Okay, and there is more road further away. I'm making it a kind of a grey, almost a reflection of the sky, and that comes off to the right there, and that's why I left that hole in the painting there. Okay. There are details in there that I won't put in, but so far that's where I want to be. Now, there's some light being cast, and also some rocks at the bottom of this section here. Okay, so I'm going to make a grey, blue, white, yellow and red. All the colours plus white will make a grey. Put more red into there. Okay, and then so that's a lighter version of that, and I can put in some description along here. It's kind of like rock falls, or they look like rock falls. It's just probably bare rock, far away. Okay, all the way along that part of the hill. Okay. Now, in the distance, the light is falling on those faraway hills in certain ways. So I'm going to just start that. I might use the same tone here that I used for those rocks, and put in little descriptions of the undulations in those hills. So that goes up there like that. Up there like that, curves around, folds in those hills, and here, that peak there, that can come down. We could make more of this later, but I'm just registering them so I know that they're there. And then there's another warm hill coming down there like that. Now, back to the sky, and I can start sculpting the background a little bit. So white plus blue to make the sky colour again. A little bit of yellow into it. I want it to be pale. Okay. And then I can sculpt these areas here now. Sculpt that hill into position. Up there. That can come down a little bit further there. Push that down, and we'll be pushing back up into the sky later on as well. push that into position. Down there like that, down there like that, and complete that part there. Okay, we can put in some brush strokes there. Now, let's start working with those clouds again. So let's put a little bit of blue into that cloud color that we made. This would make the darker part of the clouds. I've made a slightly sort of greenish tinge. So if it's all kind of mostly red down here, to have the background in shades of a complementary colour, like a greenish colour, might make for a more interesting painting. So up there like that. And paintings grow over time. As long as you don't sort of make huge changes after you've started into an area, you know, in terms of colour, you'll be okay. For example, if I started painting these of purple and went back to decided that no, I want them to be more green from a purple, then you'd get mud. It's making radical changes and overworking the paint that makes that happen. Makes your paintings look as if they've been sort of run through a mud machine. Right, and down here there's clouds in shadow along here too. Yeah, like that. Okay, and now back to the clouds themselves, the clouds in light. Add a little bit of white to that, a bit more yellow to it. And start putting in dabs where I want the light to be catching the clouds. The most light is there. That can come across there like that. The thing is about clouds is you don't need to paint the actual cloud that's there. If you think you've got a better cloud in you, you put that in. The oil paint will allow for that kind of thing because you don't have to do it all at once, like in acrylics. It's lovely. There, got clouds there. Nice light in there. Okay. And we'll move back to the land. Okay, so I think I can put some more darks in. So I'm actually going to go back to my burnt sienna and blue. Okay, and start putting in little details. For example, that roof. God, you can see my hand shaking. Push that up around there, like that's dark there. Bit of kind of detailing, but don't be absolutely specific. Just put in, there are undulations and things happening in the landscape, and you just have to suggest that they're there. Okay, so there's a dark under that defines that curve in the road. Darks along here. goes up to there. That comes down further than I have it. And then there is a dark running across here. And behind that there. It's like, I often say it's like creating a mosaic rather than painting things. You see the shape and you put it in. Or you see the tone and you put it in, really. Okay, so that's a lot darker down there than I have it. There's lots of darkness going on. And across to the right of that house there. There. Okay. More red, but dark. I'm going to mix it into that burnt sienna and blue mix. Burnt sienna and blue mix, and then add in a little bit of permanent rose. Complete some of these areas here. Let's shape that house a little bit. I don't want to lose where I am in the painting. That can come down there like that. Here, in fact, there's darks going around there like that. What I find is that you put in these large strokes. Like, imagine if I was painting on a canvas that was 2 foot by 3 foot. I'd be using bigger brushes, you know, for bigger jobs, and you've got to sort of imagine that this is one of those 2 foot by 3 foot paintings. That's why I'm using small brushes. And the thing is, with a larger painting, you'd have more texture. So if I need a dark going along there like that. We're just building this thing up bit by bit. That. You know, because the houses are important, you know, we all live in a house. We all like the houses that we live in or have in our dreams. So people start to paint the houses first. They paint house shapes and things like that. But in fact, they're probably the least important thing in the painting. The most important thing is the feeling that the painting gives you, and the houses are just suggested. Okay, so there's a nice shadow on the right hand side of each of those houses as it's away from the light. So let's grab some of that light colour and put a bit of blue into it. So we get a nice, it's almost it's bluish, bit violet-y maybe. Put in a little bit of red into that blue and white mix. And then put that in there. Across there like that. And there. And even in that road, this is the same tone, so I'm putting it in there like that. Back to more darks, blue and burnt sienna. So I can start describing some of these parts around here. There's a dark that comes off to the right of that house. Okay. There we have that now. Now, I've got to go back to those mountains. So I'm going to make up some more of that blue. Blue and white mix for the mountain, the distant mountain. Okay. And shape that mountain there. So you sculpt everything in the painting. It's sculpting and modelling. Along there like that, and come down there like that, up over that that sort of rise in the ground there. And all of that is practically the same. Push that up. I might have gone too far there, but that's okay. We can always get back to that later. The top of that eminence there is the same. Then it comes down there, and let's push that. And then there's a little bit of the same tone in that rise of the ground there, and maybe around here too. Push that there like that. Okay, back to the sky. Back to that sort of greenish shadow that I've got underneath the clouds. That I've decided that I want my clouds to look. Now, I'm going to start sort of putting in a few directional strokes here. You know, to build those monumental clouds. So I'm just sort of, for me, the wind is going from right to left. I've decided that. I don't know what way the wind is going. So I'm going to, and also I'm right-handed, so it's convenient for me to have strokes going from top left to bottom right, if you see what I mean. If I was a left-handed painter, you'd probably see lots of paintings with the opposite direction. There, we'll start building the solidity of those massive clouds. Okay. Up there like that, and that can come in there like that. So that's kind of completed that sort of bit of cloud. This is dark. Once you've established the general shape of your clouds, it's just a matter of putting in little details. That's underneath there. And around here too. And underneath here. All right. Now it really is quite dark underneath the lowest part of the clouds off to the right there. So, and in various other places as well. So let me just grab some blue, some yellow, touch of red. They are quite stormy around here. And in here in places as well. And in here, and this one here is quite stormy. Up around there like that, push that out. They can come in there like that. Okay, and then back into the sky. I think I'm going to make my sky a little lighter than I have it, and slightly greener. So I'm going to add in a blue, to the blue and white mix, a little bit more yellow and more white. Okay, so under there like that. I'm starting to use quite a lot of paint now. I can push that into shape. It's more of an angular mountain, that one. And maybe a little bit around here as well. We do want the mountains to stand off the background. and up here too. Okay, and up here. Complete that painting up right up to the edge. Yes, after 1945 he didn't paint at all. Such a shame. Yeah. And maybe get a bit of that darker tone, put that up in there like that. Push that up. That, I'm going to push that around a bit because I think up there, down, then up again and down, that's more like the way the mountain is. Okay. Back to the foreground. So I'm going to start putting in sort of details here. I'm going to use that green that I mixed up earlier. Maybe I'll add in a bit of yellow, a bit more blue, make it a bit darker. But still make sure I've got red in that green. And I can start putting in some directional strokes. Just almost vertical, really. Finish off some of these bits around that house there. Shape the house a little bit there. Up around there. Shape that house there. I mean, it really is an abstract part of the painting. Don't get too bogged down in the actual details. Around here like that. So the eye is kind of is directed to imagine all the long grass. What is it they call that grass that grows everywhere around here? It's very tough, and you make some Bridget's crosses out of it. Okay, I want to put in that last little house, so I want to put a dark across the top of it for the roof. So blue, burnt sienna. It's a nice dark, and I'll put that across there like that. Put a roof on that dwelling there. Shape it. And then shape the background. Really, they just need to be little triangles, you know. Push that, complete that, so there's nothing showing there. Let's put in a little bit of grey. I'll just fetch a grey from the pile I have on my palette. Put that in there. To do it, we don't need a huge amount of description here. Up there, just a little dot. Okay. Now let's get the a more orangey version of that general redness. Put a bit more yellow into it there. Push that. Maybe I'll push that up there as well. That's a little house, isn't it? So shape it. We'll come back to that towards the end and just put in little highlights, little dabs to make the thing look as if it's catching light. There, like that. This is kind of detail to give the illusion of function, if you see what I mean. I'm putting in little dabs. They're not exactly what's there, but it's what could be there. Okay, now obviously I can see something that I haven't actually addressed. Where was it? It was there. Right, down here. Push that there. Now, if you're en plein air, you might be starting to get a bit cold. And things start to become a little bit more urgent. That can be filled in there. Now, I think I need some blue in that near a hill. I'll put in a little bit of blue and red, so it's slightly purpley, and white. Right, and that can go in there. It's a section in there. It's more undulations in the landscape. There, coming down there like that. And the great thing about painting around here is if you get caught short, you know, you probably won't be seen. That's one of the defining factors of en plein air painting, is how long can your bladder hold out. I'm going to put in some nice purples, in fact, now, because now I'm starting to get into the painting. Now everything else has been sort of setting up and preamble. So if I can get some purple, you know, there's a suggestion of rocks around, kind of purpley colours is nice. You put in these suggestions and people read them as hopefully as what you intend them to be. And you know, the more adventurous you get, you know, you seldom leave people behind unless you start really getting into the sort of modernist style, which I will not do. Okay, so we've got that now. Now there are some lighter bits in the landscape. There are a kind of a green, so I'm going to add some white to what I made up before, a bit more yellow, and a bit more blue. Okay, so for example here, I can see that, I could put that in there, and around here. Maybe I'll do that as vertical strokes as well. Because although we do live in a kind of a very rainy world, there is a lot of colour in it. I think that was the nice thing that Paul Henry showed us. You do often find that Irish paintings can tend towards a bit of a greyness, so it doesn't have to be that way, I don't think. Okay. Now, back to the sky, or the clouds, I should say. Let's put a little bit more red in the yellow, a bit more red and yellow. touch of blue. And around the bottom of the clouds, there's parts where the light is getting in, but not very much of it. And I'm going to maintain that top left to bottom right directional strokes. You can come down here like that. And even around here, you can see some around here. They're what we used to call, apparently, I didn't realise everything had changed, but they don't call them cumulonimbus clouds anymore. Not quite sure what they do call them, but I call them cumulonimbus clouds, at least. So let's come down there to the end. We're trying to make them look cotton woolish, I suppose. And so the idea being that I've departed from the colour of the reference is that this should support this. There's a kind of an opportunity to change it. If you don't take the opportunity, things can look a little bit as they actually are, which is very often grey. And around here. And around here, it's not the bright tone. And even here there's bits of the cloud that are in light and bits that are turned away from the light. And then after this we'll go in with the really bright brights. And then we've got some bits of cloud descending in onto the horizon, which could possibly be signs that it's raining over there. There's nothing wrong with that. We'll drag some of that down. There we go. Push that around there like that. And complete that bit. There's a little bit of the wash showing through. Don't want to see any of the wash at the end of this. Ooh. And it's nice to see there's a little bit of cloud down here, which would be nice to put in, I think. Coming there like that. And then grabbing our light and warm, put that into. It's a very distant cloud there. Oh, let's go in with some very light cloud colour. So yellow there, and we're coming in to the brightest parts of the painting now. And don't tamp down the paint. Once you put it on, if you want to actually change it, put on another stroke. Don't start blending. Just because they're clouds, you think that they should be blended, or very often I think people think that. But you're better off just putting new strokes down on top of the old ones. Once again, just bearing in mind that don't change the colour too much. View down here be nice. And up around here, ooh, keep my light colour. After a while you'll stop looking at the reference and you just sort of concentrate on your own version of the way the cloud should be. That can go up there. So there's a cloud behind that cloud. You can soften edges, just don't start blending the entire thing. Okay, let's go back to our mountains. And I want to grab a lighter version of that blue. And redo these so I can make it even lighter again. Hang on, let's have a look. These areas in light are rising up from there. And this one here comes down and it curls up there. Up around there like that. So you can see a little bit of light hitting those mountains. Because they're so very far away, that's why they look so pale. Because we're seeing a lot of air in between us and there. And we've got that. And then we've got a bit down here. So that mountain descends from there. And then that one descends there again. Now, I'm going to work a bit more on this mountain here. Just going to work on the upper edge. I'm going to slightly make it paler, because it is, even though it's quite close, it's not that close. You just want to push that paint in. I might actually warm up this right hand edge of it as well. Just bear with me and I'll get back to you. And there's some detailing going on there. Now I'm going to warm up that edge with a kind of a warm red and yellow mix. Mix it in with that green, a bit more red, a bit more yellow, touch of blue. And warm this up here. Slightly warmer, slightly lighter. And the same over here. Let me add a little bit of white to that. Up there. Okay. Mountains there. Okay, grab a little bit of that purpley blue that I was using for the shadow, and that can go in here too, along there as that disappears behind the foreground. The important thing to know is how your palette performs with warm colours and cool colours. In my palette, the one that I'm using here, anything that's mixed with red and yellow starts to get warm. Otherwise, all the colours apart from apart from the burnt sienna, are cold. The white, the titanium white is cool. The yellow is cool on its own. The red is cool on its own, and cobalt blue is cool on its own. Push that around there like that. And maybe even there. In Henry's paintings, you get up close to them, there's quite a lot of subtlety in those blocks of colour. You know, so when you see a mountain that seems to be all blue, when you get up close to it, there's quite a lot in it. It's been through a lot of strokes. A lot of strokes have been applied, not necessarily of exactly the same hue. That there needs to be completed. There's a little bit of a deepening of tone there. And push that up. Okay. Now, the sky again. Putting more white. I'm going to go to the horizon now. I'm going to put a bit more yellow into that sky, yellow and white, because I'm trying to push the mountains forward in the painting. It's a bit like how would you say? It's when I normally sit when I'm painting still lives, sit the objects in the pool of light, and it's the same thing going on. The bit that you want the viewer to concentrate on, you isolate it by putting maybe a light colours or light hues around it. You're pushing the things forward, making decisions about where you want the eye to go. Along like that. Okay, so I might grab some of that actually, coming around here in the clouds. Gradually sort of making these clouds into how you want them to be. Smaller and smaller strokes, you know, running on top of each other. A lot of artists just go out and paint clouds on their own just to practice. So that's a good idea too. So I'm going to grab some white, put it into that yellow mix, put a bit more yellow into it, into the clouds. And back in I go, putting in. This is why it's really Impressionism. He kind of added in a lot, and now I'm wondering was something to do with his colour blindness, but he was adventurous with the colours in clouds and everything really, and I suppose that's why we love him so much. But and there's a lot of paint on his paintings, so don't worry about that. So we can push that around a little bit. You know, the fact that he had green skies and some very pale paintings of lakes and things like that, that almost Monet-ish, I think. The same kind of thinking. Now, let me just grab in some dark. And just go into this one. It needs a little bit of work over here. And I'm telling you, he didn't do the paintings in an hour and a half either. So a lot of work went into them, and they built up. They built up and they built up. I mean, I don't know how long it took him to do the paintings, but they weren't done in short order. So be kind to yourselves. You can go back to them. They're not necessarily what we'd call an alla prima painting either. They weren't alla prima paintings, so they weren't done in one sitting. I'm pretty sure of it. Maybe he did some like that because most artists are practicing that kind of thing anyway. But those paintings that are that have captured the imagination, there was a lot of work went into them. It took him time. Probably finished back in the studio. In fact, almost definitely finished back in the studio. And isn't that the beauty of oils, that you can sort of go in the next day and continue? Can't do that with watercolour, can you? So much. Somebody will sort of tell me, yes, you can. I'm not much of a watercolourist. So I'm going to start describing some of these clouds now. Some of the parts that I want to push out, make them more three-dimensional. Let's make a greener shadow. I'm putting in just little strokes and descriptions. Clouds are they're abstract things anyway, so they don't have to be the ones that are in your reference. Let's not blend, but just break up those edges there. As it comes down, there's less light down at the bottom of the clouds. The light's got to pass through, I don't know, like a mile of water vapor. It doesn't get through. From this point on, well, from about, I suppose, maybe 10 minutes ago or something like that, you start to see the therapeutic value of painting, because once you've decided what you're doing, you're committed. That's when you're cruising, really. And you could cruise along at sort of 33,000 feet for 3 hours. It takes you an hour to get up there, and then you cruise for 3 hours, and then you have to come down and land at the airport and rush over to use the lavatory. Yeah, and I don't want such a harsh line in there, and even maybe not so dark. So I'm just placing the dabs of that lighter green colour over what I had before. I want to get rid of some of the more orangey colours. All right. Now, I'm going to leave that for a second, okay? And I'm going to grab my small brush, and it is small. We're talking, this is a number a number 1, okay? But at this size, it'd be equivalent to some, larger brush if you're painting a large canvas. Yeah. So I'm going to get my dark, burnt sienna and blue. I start putting in what look like details, but they're not. They're just sort of dabs. Move that house up a little bit. It's not as big as I have it. There are things in the landscape, we don't know what they are, but they're dark. The temptation is, when you're painting en plein air, is to get everything in. And really, it's best just to sort of use large strokes and not become obsessed by the details. These are what I'm putting in here is essentially trees along the line of the hill. Okay, there's a dark going by the house, so I can push the shape of the house in a little bit. I was doing vertical strokes, wasn't I? I think I'll maintain that largely. Very dark along there. There. Now I need to get some of that lighter green again. When this is all finished and it's away from the reference, you never refer to the reference again. You keep the painting and the reference well away from each other. They shouldn't be seen together, because it'll only mess it up for you. Just never let anyone see the reference ever again. If they try, you shoot them. Push that up, because I shouldn't say things like that, really. I might be bloody held responsible for something further down the line. That's there like that. Now, I think those rocks beyond could do with a little bit of description, so I'll make a slight pink and just put in some little lines and random dabs, as if those granite rocks are tumbling down the hillside. Okay. And something else I like to do is put in some really roaring reds in there. So permanent rose and cadmium yellow pale hue. It's always lovely to have red in a painting. And although I'm putting in the general area of what I was what I'm describing, they're not really accurate representations of anything, really. Is that I think the painting could do with some reds. And the edges of some of these darks. There, like that. Okay, now I'm going to sort of concentrate on the lights that are in the landscape. So let me push up and shape this one. That one's okay. That one needs a dark next to it. So grab a dark. Put a dark there. We've got the dark there. Now, let's grab some white. Just a bit of yellow. And a teeny touch of red. Let me grab some more of that. So it's a kind of warm, very, very light pink. So I'm going to have to steady my hand for this. So for example, this here, the light is hitting that house on the right, on the left-hand side. There's a little bit there, probably a chimney there, and push that roof up. Grab some more. That needs to be more V-shaped up there. There's a couple of little dots there. We don't know what they are. They're only dabs. They're not describing anything accurately. We also have all the kind of furniture around the painting. We can do that now, but don't do too much of it. Oh, do you know what? There's some nice rocks that could be described in that as well. So up around here, up this by this road, they could go there. Not that all they're doing is adding this detail, giving the illusion of function type of thing. There's a nice light. You probably guess that we're not far off the end of it now, so I'm not exactly sure what that is. And in today's world, there are bloody poles everywhere, aren't there? Telephone poles, I mean. And put in some indication that there are things going on. And even at this size, if you just turn your brush around and use the heel of the brush, you can put in little graffito marks. There, like that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to do some more with the skyline. Make it even lighter again. Around here like that. Push that down. Skies tend to get lighter as they head towards the horizon. Right, back to the clouds again. put in some more support to the notion that these things are three-dimensional. Put something up there as if the cloud is getting some sun behind that dark cloud there. You could go on for a long time doing this. Light up there. Slightly darker again, just to clouds are multicolored anyway, so they're best described as multicolored. It's up to you which brand of, which colours to actually, which hues. Do you know what? I might actually reduce that one there. Go back to my houses again. Just make sure that they register as houses. Push that down there. I think in the background there's many more houses, but very, very distant. Okay, and I'm just going to go put some more detailing in here, so it's not all the one colour in any one spot. Oh, I missed a bit there. There you go. And I might just do one last thing. I might warm up those reflections on the mountains, on the distant mountains, make them warmer again. I think I'd like to do that there, for example. Okay, and then that down there like that. So there's warm light pouring onto the left hand side of these peaks. And then up around here, it's really the same. Actually, this can be warmed up a little bit there. Break that up a little bit. almost there. Okay, right. I taped up the sides. I always like doing this. You don't have to do this. You can paint right all the way up to the edge of the paper, but I kind of always like it as a kind of a finale. So that comes off there like that. You kind of almost as if you've had the piece framed. There we go. Up across the top. If you want to continue painting on it, you can just tape it up again. And across the bottom too.